I wonder what it tastes like, you know, because and are those really so tonally disparate? I don't know. Like it's sort of, once you stop being afraid or stop for a moment, you know, you allow these other questions to pop up.
Hello everyone, my name is Kurosh and welcome back to another one of our interviews on Save Point Stories. And today we got a special guest. I'm very lucky and fortunate to be surprised by this wonderful feast of an interview. We'll start off with a little bit of a pun, but please welcome Ben Wanat. Thank you, Ben, for joining me.
Hello, glad to be here.
And for our viewers that they may not be familiar with you, you are the creative director at Lurker Entertainment. Is that correct?
That is correct. Creative director, prop maker, character artist. I play the cello. I tried. We're a 5-person team, so it's such a intimate effort to try and get everything done. Everybody's wearing lots of hats, and so yeah, it's creative director is just my part-time job. While I do all the other stuff on the
working multiple gigs, taking new meaning, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and the game you're at Lurker Entertainment, but the game we're going to be talking about is Elderfeast, your upcoming game that you're helping, you and your team are working on developing, correct?
That is correct. Yes, Elderfeast is where basically the monsters are the menu. So it's quite a silly idea, but really this is a co-op third-person action game.
Okay.
Where the players are fighting eldritch, Lovecraftian monsters. You slice them apart, and then you're going to use those parts, to make delicious meals, as anybody would.
As anyone does.
Yeah, wood parts. But that's basically it in a nutshell. So if you've seen the trailer, you can kind of instantly get the gist of kind of the whole idea there.
Yeah, and I'm kind of curious. Going into this game, this is the Lurker Entertainment's debut game. Is that correct?
It is. So we're a bunch of five, a bunch AAA devs, and we've worked, for I worked at Electronic Arts, worked at Activision, now Microsoft, and just a number of other companies. And so it's the first game we've made as a studio, since forming, but we've been making games together, at least this group, for the past 6 years. So we've really gotten to know each other, and I can know what we like and what we don't like. And so it just makes it easier to have a shorthand when you can, develop with friends and develop with co-devs that just kind of know your tastes and their tastes. And so we've been fortunate to kind of band together and just be able to do this.
And that's through just working in proximity with each other. You kind of formed this little tight-knit group of friends. Is that correct?
Well, we were working on the game together previously. So What's really interesting about kind of the cycle of gaming, especially in AAA, is there's the shareholder, sort of meetings every year, right? And that's generally when all of the projects that are going to get canceled. So the project we were on for a long time it ended up getting canceled. It just wasn't in the cards for us.
Okay.
And that was almost on the anniversary of now. If you look at the layoffs that are happening again, this is basically part of that cycle. Anyway, it was actually a really fortunate experience, though. We not only do we get to work together and learn, what we like, but we also were a small team even there, being very self-reliant and just kind of just doing all the stuff ourselves as much as we could, and then evangelizing our product and just being like, hey, here's this cool thing we're making, And so it really prepared us, I guess. It was a good runway for doing it on our own, with the advantage of doing it on your own being that you get to own the IP and, and do really weird stuff, that probably would never fly in a AAA, kind of review process. So.
For sure. No, I definitely understand that. I guess one thing I'm really glad to hear that you were able to have that rapport ahead of time, because I know so much of my own line of work, coming up with a team in and of itself is a challenging effort, let alone bringing up a new game idea. Those are like two monumental obstacles in of each on their own, and you've already kind of segued through one of them of like getting the team with the rapport that you're talking about. But this game, Elderfeast, you kind of gave the pitch of it. What was can you talk me through a little bit of the inception of it? Like, what sparked that? Yeah. Hey, we want to make a co-op monster hunting, cooking, eldritch, like just throw all these wild ideas, like you were saying, into something that is weird but makes sense.
Yeah, I guess it goes back to my background. So I like when I was working in electronic arts, I've worked on every Dead Space game, right? So except for the remake, I didn't work on the remake, but since Dead Space 1, 2, 3, working on a game about dismembering monsters, right? And so last year we were just contemplating, like, if we did make a company and we did something, what would we do? And so I put together a bunch of pitches, and one of them kind of came up as a joke. I had one pitch that was like, maybe it's kind of like, a little bit like Dead Space, and you're exploring these dungeons in space. And I think because the last thing we had worked on at the previous game was a cooking mechanic, it was on my brain, and I was just like jokingly mashing ideas together, like cooking in this, cooking in that. And then it was like, wouldn't it be funny if in Dead Space the arms fell off the creatures and you picked them up and you cooked with them? And then I thought it was, everybody was going to take it as a joke, and it turned into, no, why don't we do that? And so I was like, okay, I'll figure out how to make it work. And just kind of spun this weird fiction around the world. But yeah, it was it was weird that it started as a joke, but ended up being like, no, that's actually got some legs to it. Like this is a legitimate concept. So
the more you sat with it, it kind of grew legs and kind of went from there, huh?
Yeah, exactly. It was the kind of thing that you're like, the moment you say it, you start to realize, oh, it's kind of a match made in heaven.
Nice. Yeah. It's funny because like I always I love the Dead Space games, so thank you for your contribution to those. I always looked at them. I have an engineering background, and I was like, "Yes, we got an engineer in here," kind of like repping. And now it seems like you're switching career paths. You're like, "All right, let's go into the culinary space and see what someone in that field can do."
It's a very similar process too, because like on Dead Space, because the main character was an engineer, we lensed everything through the eyes of an engineer, right? All the mechanics, everything, everything he's dealing with. Is from that kind of grease monkey perspective. And so with trying to build a world around the mentality of a chef, it's been really, really interesting. And because there's no guardrails on what's too weird, I've started to just grow an entire, world around who are these chefs and what's this organization they belong to. And it being kind of Lovecraftian, of course, the Order of the Void Eaters, which is what the chefs are called, is kind of cultish, and they're kind of like monks, but they're kind of like that mixed with Iron Chef, and so there's this sort of a funky vibe that's been created. But everything we do in the game, we really try to think about how it relates to food and how it relates to the preparation of food, so that it echoes across the lore and the characters you embody and the characters that you're going to be speaking to. So it's if you're going to go for it, just go all in, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Swing big. Part of that too, I'm kind of curious, you talked a little bit about that, the backstory and the creating the world and stuff. How does that go into, like, as you're designing, can you talk a little bit about what the storytelling or the world building looks like for this, as from like when you're designing? Are you building that lore first, or does that go hand in hand with like the gameplay mechanics that you're creating, or what's that back and forth?
I guess like my process is a little bit is more like I like to try a lot of things, and I like to stand them up only to kind of a rudimentary level to see what is gonna work, and then start to cull things and then build up, right? Which I guess is sort of like a typical prototyping process. But when it comes to even story, I don't want to commit to a story until I realize that it's going to, I guess I like to let it evolve from the situation, and as we add mechanics or as we add ideas, Like story is one of the easiest things to change in when you're making a game, right? Is like you can weave it any which way you need to support the the gameplay itself. And so it's often one of the things that's course corrected all the way up to the very end to get something coherent out of it. In this case, I did sort of think back to like what is it about cooking that drew me to it. And I loved the original Iron Chef show in Japanese, which was like just such an amazing over the top kind of kitchen battle, but it took itself so seriously. And it has such sort of like ceremony to it, which I loved, and I wanted to sort of transfer that into the feel of the story of sort of becoming a chef in this order. And so I would just kind of transfer some of those feelings over onto the story to try to build up on all of the ideas that made me interested, I guess, in food and cooking competition, or just in using unusual ingredients. I also watch a lot of cooking shows. So my ritual at lunch is sit down, watch a cooking show. Now that cooking show could be, something seriously where they teach you a technique, or it could be something that's like a little, kitchen battle, or like Delicious in Dungeon, right? Where you're just like watching some fun, take on food. And so wrapping all of those ideas into the fiction, I just kind of wanted to soak in it all and then build out of it, a world that felt coherent. I've also just have a love of cosmic horror ever since, long before the Dead Space days. And so in that series, I would just try and dump, cosmic horror in there a lot and weave it into the lore. And so I guess I just can't get away from it. So in this one, of course, there's all these Lovecraftian god sort of things all combining in this one little universe.
It adds a fun, I think, there's a juxtaposition of like the more wholesome coziness of cooking with not just monsters, but then you got the eldritch horror kind of aspect to it, and you're like, oh, how are these meshed together, like you're saying, and make a dish you wouldn't expect.
Yeah, I guess that's part of it too, is that when I think of an experience like Dead Space, it wants to be tonally narrow, right? It wants to really hit the horror vibe and never let go, right? And in a game like Elderfeast, I guess what I've grown to appreciate is a lot of tonal variety and the ability to sort of look at yourself even humorously. Even if your characters take themselves seriously, the world can be a bit bizarre, and it's allowed to, right? And so you can have you can feel levity towards the world, and you can also feel afraid of the monsters. But I guess the point of this game isn't necessarily to beat you over the head with like, this is a scary game. It's not a scary game.
Well,
fucking Lovecraftian monsters, right? It flips the formula. So
and I think the co-opness of it also lends itself, because I look at just like a very known IP of like Alien, the Alien franchise. You can have the Alien Isolation, which really leans into the isolated horror of it all, or you can go into the co-op nature and just be like, hey, we're playing something co-op by in and of itself feels much less terrifying. You're going through a shared experience with someone. Is that, and something I wanted to touch on in addition to that, is there and this is something I'm not maybe privy to with Elderfeast, but is it more of a player insert themselves, or is there a like John Elderfeast character that you're portraying?
I've always been a fan of pouring yourself into the role, so I try to create players that are a little bit more of a empty vessel. But that kind of experience can feel somewhat generic sometimes, so I always feel like it's still important to have an identity of your role in the world, even if you don't have a name and a backstory. Like, I guess I always appreciate the typical like step off the boat, and then the adventure begins kind of scenario, because it just doesn't. It's not telling you what your character will say. It's like I feel like I'm embodying the chef, I guess.
Yeah, no, I definitely see that. I was kind of curious too, for you and your team, to whatever length you can speak to. again, you've spent so much time in that AAA space, working on some of your prior games. How much did you have to really rewire yourself to operate in this space, for this game development to operate? Like, was it a hard rewiring, or it sounds like you already lent some of your skill sets from that space, but like, was there any new elements to it, or anything challenging or different?
Yeah, I guess that was the beauty of working small for the prior 6 years, is that I could. I guess we had been growing the skill set that whole time, and now it was an opportunity to then finally be free of any of the other sort of constraints of that system and do it on our own. I think the thing we had to learn very quickly was like that, when you're working at a company that handles all that stuff, they, you're not really required to do all of the maintenance of something like a company. You don't have to stand it up. You don't have to get it operational. You don't have to, get funding, whatever. So there was that whole side of it that we needed to learn, but we studied it as quickly as we could and just started to learn, especially in the indie space, right? Because indie is a really sort of special microcosm of gaming. It's grown tremendously, right? But like, it's so it's so much more personal, I guess, is what I love about it, right? And I really want to make something that is an expression of me, an expression of our team. And when you're working AAA, you're generally trying to hit more broad targets of what the thing should appeal to, who are the types of gamer profiles. Everything gets scientific. And so, therefore, the products that are created are more, just kind of constructed in that kind of science-y way and course-corrected in that way. Whereas when in the indie space, I just feel like I see much more just expressions of who these people are who are making the game. And there's more of an anything goes mentality, which I've just found everybody much more receptive, to kind of anything. And so it really, it just makes a big difference on the output and also your focus, So, but anyway, we had to learn stepping into indie. I had done an indie studio before, but we ended up organizing as a C Corp, where it was, sort of like investor money kind of thing. And this time around, I was like, don't want to have, anybody that we're beholden to. It really we should never feel like we are tailoring our creative to somebody else's opinion who is not on the team, I guess.
Yeah. No, something you hit on, I'm kind of curious about, if to whatever experience you can share, is that balancing beam that is, games are an art form and games are also like a business,
right?
And like dancing that line. And I always hear so much from the indie space of the freedoms and the you can get weird, as you said, but to what does success end up looking different, or are you aiming for the same met things that would look as like success for what Dead Space was trying to do, or what other games were trying to do?
I guess it's all about like your profit margins and your return on investment sort of thing, right? For us, it's not necessarily return on investment, since it's what investment money, so it's more like what does it take to keep your studio sustainable, and part of that is to just not grow unnecessarily, right? And so that's why we're very specifically like, hey, can we just do something with 5 people, and try and figure it out.
So it's like managing the business side of it more like consciously and looking out for what looks like long-term sustainability in that way.
Yeah. And I guess when you're coming up with an idea and you're trying to see if it has momentum, I guess in this case there was a bit more of a leap of faith that people, if you build it, they would show up, right? So I think when you're doing it in a larger studio structure, because it's so analytical and because everybody's pulling numbers and saying, hey, this game did this amount and this is how they did it and whatever, it's not like we're not doing some of that to some extent, but I guess I never want to feel like I'm just trying to hit a target. Like, gamers really like this right now, and why don't we make that? So.
You mean it's not an extraction shooter or like
yeah, like I just don't. I mean, I understand, I guess, the point from a money making exercise why people would do that, but I don't. As somebody who just gets pure joy out of creating, and that's what drives me in life. Like I hope that people show up and like it, and then of course, buy it, and that allows us to make more games. But at the same time, yeah, if it ever starts to veer into the territory of, somebody on the outside sort of wants it to be this and somebody else wants it to be that, and it doesn't feel right, to the vision of the product, then I guess I'm just not interested in pursuing that's cash, I guess,
I thank you for sharing that insight. On the creative note, I am curious about one more thing about you and your team, with a 5-person team, and you said earlier of like wearing so many hats. How does structure, I guess, look in that? Like, are you all involved in the creative design? Are you all involved in the artistic direction? Are you all involved in the narrative? Or like, how can you talk at all to that length? I'm very curious about your team.
Yeah, we were very like upfront when we were creating the company. We definitely were like, hey, let's forget even like how many years any of us have been in the industry, and we're all entering the company on completely equal footing. We're all completely equal contributors, and we are going to, and so don't be afraid to speak out about the things that you care about or the things that you would rather see go another way. So like we talk every single day, and we're, working together every single day through ideas. We're always, online together, chatting, and then hopping into, the room together to do a video call. And so every creative decision, when you are a team that small, everybody gets to contribute. That's a huge difference from AAA development, where everybody feels like they have no voice and they are just serving a machine, essentially. Like it and it can be frustrating. So I've always appreciated when I've worked on smaller teams how much people find their voice and can learn to contribute, because everybody has so many good ideas, and the more you can kind of vibe on things that people are saying and roll with it and evolve them, you end up in an even better spot than where you started.
Yeah, it gives, I think, a sense of ownership, and when you have a sense of ownership, you have a sense of investment. You're like, okay, now I'm involved in this. I'm not just passing a cog or a nut or a bolt across.
And there's just a lot of damn good ideas out there that people have that when they're not afraid to speak about them, like a lot of amazing stuff comes up. So I guess that's what I learned going small. Even on the previous project, was just like when people feel that like they're being heard, everything gets better.
Nice. And so right now, Elderfeast, currently tentative, I believe on Steam, it says planned release date of 2027. Between now and then, I know you're developing the game, but like how much I'd imagine too, like going at events like PAX or GDCs and so many other things, is there a stage where you start building out like community or player kind of notes? Like, can you talk to any of that and what that could look like?
We've got our Discord up now if people want to join it. So,
okay.
Great. Yeah, if you go to our Steam page, you should be able to find like the Discord link, probably like our different social. We've got like, I don't know, Instagram, if anybody uses that anymore. I don't know.
People use all the various ones.
Yeah, so we try to blast out information to people, but we also are now inviting people to the Discord server to just kind of say hi. Like I'm in there sometimes posting work in progress art, like as I'm modeling, and so it's we're starting to get people in there. It's still pretty early, but yeah, I guess I just encourage people to show up and say hi and get involved. And we will be having playtests starting next year, on the road to that early access release. And I would say look for early access later in 2027. It'll give us time, for us to 5 people to try and get all of the pieces in place.
Of course.
But we're excited to get people to take a deeper look at it for sure.
Yeah, games are no small feat, and so the time and effort to put into it. I'm kind of curious too, I guess, on that front of like you talked about your love and passion and enjoyment that comes from like the cooking side of it, from the Eldritch horror side, the Lovecraftian side of it. Are you really digging into like the Lovecraftian accuracies of it, or are you taking your own spin on things?
It's for sure a spin. Yeah, I mean, if, in some sense, it's a little bit of a parody, some somewhat satire, but because it takes itself so seriously, it has to feel like, detailed lore. So we have, I don't know, in the trailer, we've got the character we call the Deep One, with the big orb eyes and the angler thing hanging down. So it's like inspiration is there. Sometimes some of the terminology will be shared. But when you look at like which gods, are in this world, is one of them going to be called Cthulhu? Probably not exactly that. It'll probably be, our own spin on it.
Okay, that's fun.
It gives us a little bit more license, I think, to, create something that feels fresh and new, while still scratching a lot of the same itch that people love when they come for Lovecraftian.
That's beautiful. I want to leave you with 2 more questions. When making this, or when someone is experiencing or playing or playtesting Elderfeast, is there a feeling you hope that stays with them longer, or like a specific element of that you're like, I really want this to stick or be a part of that core experience?
That's a good question. I guess what's interesting about cosmic horror cooking is, so cosmic horror is, what the hell is that? I cannot comprehend it. And then the next step I love being I wonder what it tastes like, because, and are those really so tonally disparate? I don't know. Like it's sort of, once you stop being afraid or stop for a moment, you allow these other questions to pop up. So there's a bit of the excitement and sort of the terror, in quotes, of meeting something from another dimension, and then the curiosity and the creativity of turning it into a beautiful ragu or a souffle or whatever. So, like, I guess that's what I'd like people to be frightened and delighted, and in equal quantities.
Okay, that's very cool. I'm very curious if this idea has been thought of before, but like the cooking, from what I've seen on like the Steam page, looks very involved or like very elaborate. It's not just like toss one ingredient, it's not simplified. I'm like, oh, would future stuff look like? Oh, you've unlocked the air fryer DLC, or like the souffle, or new methods. But I'm sure you guys are going all through all the creative stuff. The last question I wanted to leave you with, and this is more of like a personal one for you, Ben. I know for me, one of the biggest things that's like a tenet of mine when I speak with folks is the games leave an impact for players and for people, and they become a part of us, and we become part of it. And I'm very curious for you, if you were to pick a game that has contributed to who you are today, that you've played either in the past, present, or little bits, or that you helped make, like, what game was that, and like, can you talk to how it contributed to who you are today?
I mean, I guess I just think back to like my favorite games of all time. So if it was formative, one of the most formative ones that helped me creatively in my career would have been Dead Space, because there was an opportunity to dive into so many details and really explore a space so completely that it gave me a lot of process and a lot of time to really sort of like do something so completely and holistically, to just like build out a universe, right? And so, but anyway, switching gears to a game that I did not work on, that I adore the crap out of, and I probably bought a copy for everything I own, would be Skyrim. And it's one of those classics that, like, you pour yourself into the role. The world does not expect you to, I mean, yes, you're a dragonborn, but I always see, I'm not going to do that quest yet because I don't want the dragons to show up, but I go screw off and go to the hills. And so, like, I love the freedom, and I love the way that it allows you to be who you want to be. And so that had a big impact on what I look for as a gamer, but also what I look for when I'm creating systems for a game. I want people to have a space to explore and to have fun and to sort of be themselves to some extent, rather than a narrow, specific experience that you're meant to thread directly through, I guess.
That's beautiful. No, thank you for sharing that, Ben. And thank you for joining me today on this episode, this interview. I'm really excited to see what you and your team at Lurker Entertainment put together with Elderfeast. Again, I'll have the link to the Steam page in the show notes. I hope folks wishlist. But is there any final things you'd like to leave our viewers with?
No, I guess just I appreciate for any of the folks out there who have seen it and got excited about it. It's been really validating and very humbling to see how many people actually, show up for these things and get interested. And so, I guess I just appreciate, all of the support and all of the people that have been showing up. So, and if you haven't heard of it and you haven't, take a look at our Steam page. Watch the trailer, and please join us on Discord if you're interested in talking to us, deeper. We would love to hear from you. But also, it's fun to just hang out with people who have similar interests. So
express yourselves, be part of a community.
Yeah.
Find that creativity and be amongst peers that also are doing the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much, Ben. I appreciate your time, and thank you for listening in. We'll catch you on the next Save Point.
Thanks.